Okay, everybody, let's talk about defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are very important in terms of concepts in this chapter. Maybe the most important concepts in the entire book. Defense mechanisms are among the most common dynamics in human behavior known to mankind. We use them every day. And in and of themselves, these are not bad things. If we overuse them or underuse them, it can become quite maladaptive. The idea of defense mechanisms in terms of healthy use is to allow us to have time to deal with certain truths about ourselves and about how we're living our lives that we don't like. And defense mechanisms are ways the ego defends itself unconsciously, by the way. One of the reasons why they work is because they are unconscious. We're not aware of them. So if I rationalize about why I'm doing a poor job, I really believe it, and it makes me feel a little better. And the whole idea of the defense mechanism is to make me feel better about myself. The problem is, if in the long run you don't make some changes in terms of areas of your life you need to change, you just keep using defense mechanisms, then things never really get better for you. If you don't use defense mechanisms at all, you're going to be overwhelmed with all the things in your life that you'd like to change and all the different ways you'd like to be better. So just keep that in mind. All defense mechanisms are forms of repression. That all of them are forms of us burying information, burying reality into our unconscious so that we can deal with it some other time. It's basically what they all are. Obviously, one specific defense mechanism is repression, but just realize they're all forms of repression. Freud came up with the idea of repressing information to the unconscious for ways to protect the ego. The ego is the conscious part of our personality, according to Freud, compared to the id and the superego. You guys should be already aware of that from doing your work in Blackboard and reading your book. But Freud's daughter, Anna, actually perfected and fully developed each of the individual defense mechanisms that we're dealing with. So really quick, not really quick, but briefly, let me get to the point. Let me talk about all the ones that we are studying. First of all, repression. Repression is motivated forgetting. Think something that's unpleasant, that challenges our sense of who we are, what we want, how we want things to go. And we don't want to deal with it. We just don't want to deal with it. So we bury it. We push it aside. We get it out of our conscious thinking just so we don't have to deal with it. And then later on, it pops up for a variety of reasons. One of the most famous examples of repression are kids who were sexually abused, molested, but repress the memory of it until they become adults, until they start to engage in adult romantic relationships, and then physical intimacy triggers memories of what happened to them as children. Somebody who is overwhelmed with debt may just take the bills they get in the mail and stuff them in a drawer. That's kind of a symbolic form of repression. I don't even want to, deal with it. I don't even want to look at those bills. Problem is, bills go unpaid, creates a bigger problem in the long run. That's repression. Regression. I'm overwhelmed right now with what's going on in my life. I don't think I can handle it. I don't think I'm up to it. And instead of failing and then admitting to myself all the reasons, all the deficits in me which caused me to fail, I regress to an earlier stage in life when somebody else took care of me, when somebody else took care of things, and when I was safe and protected. A kind of a childish kind of response. Moving back in with your parents because you're having a tough time is an example of regression. And again, that might be a good idea, but doing it permanently is not a good idea. And never doing it, no matter what, being homeless is certainly not a good idea either. So just keep that in mind. In moderation, these all can be functional. Reaction formation. There's something about me that deep, deep, deep down, I suspect might be true. And if that is true, that's unacceptable to me. So I behave in the opposite way to kind of convince myself that that thing isn't true. For example, let's say someone is becoming an adult and they're having feelings that they may be gay. And for them, because of their upbringing, because of their knowledge and attitudes about sexual orientation, that may be completely unacceptable. So they become very promiscuous with members of the opposite sex to kind of prove to themselves how much they are heterosexual. That's reaction formation. Rationalization. I create a reasonable, rational example for my behavior, so I feel better about what I did. The problem is, deep down, it's not the truth. I cheat on an exam, and I consider myself to be an honest, hardworking person. So to feel better about that, I talk to myself about everybody cheats. I'll never do it again. This was only one time. That exam was unfair. I create reasons why I was justified cheating. The persons next to me had their exam right in front of me. I couldn't help but cheat. Anybody would do that, and on and on and on. Displacement. Displacement's about anger. Somebody hurts me. Somebody does something that I take personally, and I am offended, upset. But for a variety of reasons, I can't take out my anger on the source of that offense. Because maybe they're powerful compared to me. Maybe I don't want to lose their relationship. I need them too much, so I don't. So what I do is I take out my anger and my frustration on somebody that's rather defenseless, somebody that'll put up with it. This could be an inanimate object. It could be a family member, a child, a partner. And when I'm taking out my frustration and anger on my child or on my partner, I really believe whatever they did is the problem. I don't know. I don't think in my mind, well, let me see. I'm really angry at my boss. I can't express that to my boss because they might fire me. So I'm going to go home and take it out on my wife. We don't think that way. We think the wife is the problem, but that allows us unconsciously to get rid of all that anger. So that's displacement. Sublimation is actually the healthiest one. It's taking some kind of an impulse we have that is not socially acceptable and channeling it into something that is socially acceptable. Freud, for example, believed that older children who liked sucking their thumb, but they couldn't do that at school because they'd be made fun of, will channel that into something a little more socially acceptable. They'll gratify that oral need in some way more acceptable. So they'll talk a lot, or chew gum, or eat a lot, or start smoking, something like that. Now, obviously, today smoking is not very socially acceptable, but it's still more socially acceptable than sucking your thumb. And maybe they would vape, which is a little more socially acceptable than smoking regular tobacco cigarettes. Then we have projection. Projection is, there's something that I think deep down might be true of me, but I really don't want that to be true of me. If that was true of me, it would really bother me. My self-concept doesn't include that. So to get distance between me and that quality, I see it in everybody else. I am making fun of it, ridiculing it in others. People that are very, very critical, and people who tend to criticize the same kinds of things in many people, you can bet that they're projecting, that they really are insecure. Deep down, they're insecure about that issue in themselves. One famous example would be folks that are very homophobic. They're always gay bashing and quick to point out somebody who's gay and to ridicule the idea of being gay. Freud would say that you can count on the fact that that person is insecure about their own sexual orientation, their own sexuality. So those are the ones on the worksheet. Check out the answers that I posted to all those individual items. If you have any questions, post them on the chapter. I think it's 11. I know this has changed a lot depending on the edition of the textbook, the same textbook. But I believe we're into chapter 11. Yeah, chapter 11, student questions. And I'll be posting another video later today on the Big Five. See you later.